This is about making books more inclusive, and this is what the Roald Dahl Foundation wanted.
This is horse manure, right? In 1946, there was a book published called 1984 by George Orwell. It was a terrifying picture of a future of thought police, of dictatorship, of the population being told what to read, what to say, what to look at. In that book, and I have to paraphrase it because I haven't got it with me, statues will be removed, history will be rewritten, paintings will be repainted, there will no longer be history. It's here. It is now here. Interestingly,
even though, the point I suppose that the publishers have made is the essence, the spirit of the book are exactly the same.
No,
they're
No,
minor modifications.
You made this
that's the point they've made.
No, you made this sound very reasonable. You said the publishers have brought in sensitivity readers to look at this. Now we know, and we categorically know, about these sensitivity readers. We know that they are barely out of their teens. We know that they were chosen on the basis of previous trauma.
Do we know that?
Sexual, yes,
do we have?
do.
Is there evidence of that? Where
Absolutely.
is that?
By your Daily Telegraph today, an interview with one of them.
That's one individual quoted in the Daily Telegraph today.
Well, that's what whistleblowers are. That's what whistleblowers are.
But I mean, George, you made the comparison.
All right, let me finish.
Sorry, excuse me.
I didn't interrupt you.
No, OK, go for it.
The point now is that if you change this, and you can play around with children's books, now Shakespeare's next on the list. Now the greatest work in the English language, Ulysses, is next on the list. Already, the Tate Gallery is not hanging pictures on the basis of their quality. Hogarth, one of the great British painters, they don't talk, he sits on a chair. They talk about the chair being used by boats to bring slaves into England.
George, don't some contemporary, actually many contemporary productions of Shakespeare, as you mentioned now, they edit out a lot of their racially derogatory lines, and Shakespeare remains, sort of played out in theatres around the world and people can enjoy it with just a line or two edited out. The essence remains the same, but all offence is removed.
You can't compare Shakespeare to this situation.
But this is, to use a great old phrase, the thin end of the wedge. And if we see the Tate Gallery, as we speak, Trinity College, College is proposing to remove the greatest philosopher this country has ever produced from its library.
OK, let me just let Hugh want to get back in there.
You started with the comparison to 1984, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is about government and authoritarian governments doing this, implementing this. There's no evidence that the government had any involvement with what the publisher decided to do here. So the comparison is completely false.
And you're talking about children aged between 7 and 9. That's why they've changed the words.
But I suppose the point that he's making, Claire, is that this is the thin end of the wedge. Where do you stop?
Well, where do you stop? This is the way the world is now.
Do we go back and just alter everything there that has deemed to be insensitive or inappropriate? Do we go back and revise all texts, all movies, all TV programmes?
Over time, that is going to happen. The world has changed. The way the next generation thinks is different. And that's just the way it is.
Things are different. That's just the way it is.
OK, let's start off by saying the integrity of an artistic work should not be interfered with. But there's nothing new about this. Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice probably would be stopped by an editor now. Fagin in Dickens somebody would have said this is anti-Semitic. And we have examples of works, Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, regarded as anti-church, big tracts of it taken out when it was published, being put back in again. What gives me great hope out of this is that children are great at finding what's a little bit naughty, a little bit risque, a little bit not what they're supposed to be reading. The history of children's literature is full of people opining, this is what children should be reading. Lives of the Saints in the convent library, the Victorian books. But they always go after the rascally stuff.
Okay, just be clear,
and they will go after Roald Dahl's rascally stuff.
There should be no revision at all, that it's all sacred monuments that must be protected and never touched. Is that what you're saying?
In the case of art, that would be absolutely my position. Now, there is always a question of where does it stop, where does Shakespeare stop and Roald Dahl begin? And I do think that Roald Dahl did something which turned children's literature on its head. And he has to be respected for doing that.
What is the benefit, I suppose, for children reading about ugly people or fat people? What's to be gained from leaving those phrases in?
What is to be gained by leaving the phrases in is exactly what the editors are trying to achieve. Creating the question, is this acceptable? Is this an acceptable description for Augustus in Charlie the Chocolate, that he's enormously fat? Maybe it is not an acceptable, but Roald Dahl isn't saying that. He's throwing it into context of a children's book where the children, and they're very good at questioning. I read Roald Dahl to my daughters.
Every grotesque character is fat in the books, and that's why they changed it.
And Owen, let you respond to that.
Yeah, absolutely, but there are children's. The history of children's literature is full of the little prejudices, the casual racism.
And are we not reinforcing those?
Enid Blyton's world was so far removed from, and some of the casual comments that were made would be unacceptable now.
OK, but are we not reinforcing those casual prejudices by allowing these books to be republished in the original format?
Let's take Julius Caesar, right? Julius Caesar says, Jan Cassius has a lean and hungry look. He is not to be trusted. So are you now going to ban, if you're worried about fat people, is now every man under 12 stone weight not to be trusted? This is literature. I mean, it's the greatest philosopher that's ever produced. Berkeley. They're going to remove his name from the library in Trinity. I presume they're going to suggest to California that their greatest university, the University of California in Berkeley, that they change that as well. You can't do it.